All right, welcome. It is Wednesday. It is 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. That means it is time for the Not Zone. We talk about NFL football here from, of course, Sports Not. Sportsnot.com. If you haven't already gone up and checked out sportsnot.com, do us a favor. Go ahead and do that as soon as I can spit it out. Also, do us a favor here. If you don't already subscribe to the YouTube channel, what are you waiting for? Thank you. Go do that. Hit that notifications bell. Give us a thumbs up to take part in the chat. We will get in there. If you guys want to chat with us, we're totally fine doing that. And I want to introduce, we got a lot of stuff going on, but I'm going to introduce myself, Scott Branson. I'm an editor-writer with Sports Not. Also, my colleague, Ryan Dyrud. He's the founder of the Los Angeles Football Network, back from the Super Bowl. Of course, we talked to him last week on Radio Row. And a couple things we're going to get to today, Ryan. We're going to talk about, just put a bow on the Super Bowl. A couple things we want to talk about there. Mm-hmm. We're not going to rehash the game. Everybody's seen it a million times, but I do want to get into some of those things. We also have the Combine coming up on the 29th. You and I are going to be there. I'm excited about that. So we'll be able to bring the folks here on the Not Zone some great content directly from Indianapolis. Then we'll talk a little bit about free agency, which is the next step. So Combine end of the month, March 13th, then the new league year starts. And guess what can happen? Free agents can start negotiating with people. You have your legal tampering right before that, which is always, you love that term, Ryan? Legal tampering? Like, isn't that like just maybe like a lull or what? I don't know what you want to call it. Like a loophole day, something crazy like that.
Yeah. It's like your taxes, right? There's always some loophole with something.
Yes, exactly. So the legal tampering, all that's coming forward. So we're going to talk about that. But Ryan, I want to talk to you. I know when we were with you last week and you were on Radio Row, you told us a little bit about what was going on there. Interesting. And, because of me, and I lived in Las Vegas for a long time. My wife was born and raised there. I had one of my children was born there. So I love Las Vegas. This is my former hometown. Joe Buck starts off, we talked about last week. Oh, something bad's going to happen in Las Vegas. Well, nothing did. Nothing bad happened. There was no problems with players. There was no issues. The city of Las Vegas, the county of Clark County in Nevada, and it's actually in Paradise, Nevada, is where the game was actually held. It's a township inside the city, inside the county. Did a great job hosting the Super Bowl. Would love to hear just some closing thoughts from you on just how Vegas was. I mean, you've been there for a lot of different things, but how was Vegas as a Super Bowl city overall and a host in your mind?
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I mean, Vegas is, we like to say in LA out here, we're the entertainment capital of the world, but I think Vegas has probably taken that baton just with all the stuff they do. And now they're one of the sports capitals of the world. So it wasn't their first rodeo. I've been out there for the Pac-12 title game, been out there for Pac-12 Media Day, been out there for March Madness, obviously. The Big West, where I went, my alma mater, Long Beach State, moved our Big West tournament from Anaheim, California to Las Vegas.
Yep.
Obviously much smaller scale, but been out there for a lot of stuff. Super Bowl is the biggest thing they've probably hosted outside of F1 just a few months ago. But yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I mean, everything in my eyes went off without a hitch. I did leave Friday night, so I wasn't there Saturday and Sunday for the actual game, but all week leading up to was great. Mandalay Bay was a great host where Radio Row was, where the fan experience was, which, by the way, the fan experience was probably, this was my fourth Super Bowl now going to, by far the biggest fan experience.
Really?
I mean, it was just massive. And the other one, they're all still big, but it was massive how large this one was. So yeah, it was fantastic and missed you there. Wish you were there with me, but
me too.
Great seeing you as always. And I got to say, I always look forward to the show, mainly just because I get to see you and talk football, but I always look forward to what hat you're going to be rocking. I'm loving the hat drip today.
Always something different. Try to get it up. And I have I'm tearing down my normal set, and this is my temporary set, so you can see I kind of a little bit of background, some bookshelves going on there. But yeah, no. So I appreciate that. Yeah, and I think that's the thing is Las Vegas. The thing about Las Vegas is living there as long as I did. Conventions, right? It's what fuels the whole thing. And so when the Super Bowl and doing like the Fan Fest and doing Radio Row, that's stuff they do all the time. They might be doing it for the National Association of Broadcasters or Magic, which is the big clothing thing. So it makes sense. It's not any big deal for them to have 300,000 people coming to town. Now, LA does a great job too. New Orleans does a great job. All the Super Bowl host cities, by far, the ones that have repeat, have done a great job. And now we heard last week from the commissioner, Goodell, that Las Vegas will be on that roster, whether it's every 5 or 6 years, whatever it ends up being is what it'll be. But it was good to see that, and Joe Buck can suck it. So there you go.
Just to put a bow on that, like I don't understand even what the the worry was. It's not like Vegas had, as you mentioned, all the conventions, but they've been hosting boxing and UFC for 50
Yeah.
years. I mean,
Yeah.
every major boxing event has been in Vegas, and there's
Yeah.
tons of. I mean, it's so I don't understand even
Well,
why that was even a thing.
I know, and not only that, but people don't know this. But living there, when I lived there, both as a young guy, as a married guy with a family, is that most people don't see the stuff off the strip. You hear about the crazy stuff that happens. Of course, we had the mass shooting, all that stuff. So people know that stuff. If you only go to Vegas, you stay on the strip, and then you go back to the airport, and that's all you see. I get it. I totally get it. That's that's seeing one part of the city. But the other thing is, people forget that on a regular Super Bowl weekend, when the game is not in Las Vegas, 200,000 people go to Las Vegas, right? Now, gaming is more prominent throughout the country now, so you can bet on football like where I'm at in Ohio, you can bet everywhere. But still, people use it as a trip, just like guys go for the first weekend as a guys trip for the NCAA tournament for March Madness. The two biggest weekends in Las Vegas are Super Bowl weekend and the beginning of March Madness. That first weekend,
Mhm.
200,000 plus people. So the Super Bowl bought 350, so another 150,000, almost doubles it. But it's still a big weekend. It always has been for Super Bowl weekend. So it's something not unusual. And I think Joe Buck, Joe Buck's a St. Louis guy, and all due respect to people in St. Louis, I don't know Joe Buck. Just maybe he hasn't spent a lot of time in Las Vegas, or maybe he just hears the crazy stuff, or maybe he's projecting because he's been to Las Vegas and done some unruly things. I don't know. So
Yeah.
whatever it is, we'll see what he says about New Orleans next year. But the game overall, again, don't want to rehash it, but I just got to tell you, Ryan, that listen, I don't think there's any question, and I know they don't have as many Super Bowls as the Patriots yet. But if you look at the Chiefs are a dynasty. We talked about it last week.
Yep.
There's no question they are, because when you win 3 Super Bowls in 5 years, and you do so this year, as I mentioned last week, with the 28th best team in your franchise's history. Last year was the 22nd best team. 2019, when they won the Super Bowl, it was their 6th best team. They were a much better team than that offense. You remember,
Mhm.
but you look at this Chiefs team, and all my Raider friends out there hate me saying it. There's just no denying, and I don't understand people. I get the number, the sheer number, and I'm not even. I'll get into the Brady Mahomes stuff in a second, but with this team and with what Andy Reid, what the organization has been able to do, to me, it's remarkable. Will they get 6? I don't know. Okay, I don't know. But Patrick Mahomes is 28 years old. Ryan, they have 3 already.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's I didn't think, especially once they gave him that contract early on, it ended up being less guaranteed than I think everyone initially freaked out about. But the $500 million contract, the thought was like, okay, they'll have a nice run for his rookie deal. Once that kicks in, it's really going to hurt them. And to a degree, it did, right? Because they've
Mm-hmm.
lost some big name free agents. They haven't been able to sign some big names. They've still done some stuff on the offensive line. But they lost stuff in the secondary. But the key is A, you have Mahomes, who's the best quarterback in football, and then B, they've drafted really well. And kudos to Brett Veach, what he's been able to do. His draft just 2 years ago with Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis
It's
and some of
crazy.
these other key contributors that have Ladarius Sneed as a late round pick. So that's the key. And we talk about it here all the time in LA. It's the same with the Rams, right? Like they have spent big on certain positionals and then really collaborated to draft well in later rounds to be able to, make up for the lack of cap space. And so the
Mm,
Rams kind of did it first. The Chiefs have just been able to make it last longer by not having any down years because they've stayed relatively healthy. And B, Patrick Mahomes, as great as Matthew Stafford is out here, minus being hurt, I think Patrick Mahomes is in another echelon. So there is a really well-run organization. Obviously, when you have the continuity of the head coach and the quarterback, that's a huge factor to it. But then the way they've scouted and drafted and kind of built every single year is what teams I think should be emulating. A lot of teams, you think of Brandon Beane, what he said about the Rams and Les Snead, kind of made fun of that mantra of, going all in and then having to pay for it down the line. Well, the Chiefs have also proved that you can go all
you could
in
do it.
if you
Yep.
draft well, if you actually know how to
Yes.
draft. And
Imagine
so
that.
we'll see now, kind of piggybacking on the Super Bowl, we'll see now what happens with the Niners because they clearly went all
Mm,
in this year. And so they're going to have to really continue drafting well in order to keep competitive and keep those juices flowing. So, Chiefs,
right.
it's remarkable what they're doing, though, Scott.
Right, and we'll talk about the free agents and how they might impact, as a top free agent. Although we heard from him today, and he doesn't sound like he's going to be a free agent, but we'll talk about that. Is a Chief in a
Mhm.
second. But I think you look at that situation there, and you're right. I mean, look, the Chiefs have done it. Now, what are they going to do this year? Patrick Mahomes is going to restructure his deal. He restructures his deal, they can free up $35 million. So they want to keep going. And I'll say this because remember, I think the big question mark with the Chiefs being quote unquote a dynasty and can they catch the Patriots is the fact that Andy Reid is older. You brought it up last week, and I think that can Andy Reid go 5-6 more years? I don't know if he wants to. I don't know if he can. Whatever. He's 67 years old. The difference there is remember the Patriots had was it 8-year gap between Super Bowl wins. That was the longest drought they had.
Yeah.
They were in the playoffs, but they had that drought. So if you think about the Chiefs, yeah, they've got 3 and 5 years. The chances they get 6 in 9 years or 6 in 10 years is pretty slim. But at that same time, can he get close? I think Mahomes has obviously a better shot of doing it. But if Andy Reid's gone, that's that mixture. I heard Will Compton talk about, Mahomes is a system quarterback too. He's got Reid's system. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I mean, Will's a smart dude. He played football, but I will tell you this, there's just no denying the guy does it when he needs to do it. That's why I said last week, I couldn't pick against him. I just couldn't do it. And guess what? He proved me right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's, and I've talked about this all the time too. And it's no knock, right? Because everyone talks about system quarterbacks, game managers, this and that. And it's seen as like a negative connotation when in reality, it's like, well, if they do it better than everyone else, who cares if they have that moniker? Now, Patrick Mahomes, what makes him different is while I do personally believe he's in like the best situation possible for him and he's fits in that system, he also can do things off script that no other quarterbacks can do. So when push comes to shove, when you got to have it, like he gives you that extra element that say Brock Purdy doesn't quite give you. I think Brock Purdy played phenomenal. It wasn't his fault the Niners lost, which maybe we'll get to. But Mahomes has that extra element. But it's so funny because when you look at ADOT and air yards and all this, Mahomes is at the bottom of the league right now. I mean, he's basically doing what Drew Brees did his whole career, which was quick passing, get it in your playmakers, let them do the work for you. And then when you need it, you push the ball down the field. But he's not this, he's kind of changed from early his career where he was more gunslinger. He's really not that much of a gunslinger anymore. I mean, you watch that Super Bowl until that last drive, they were dump off passes almost the entire game, but he didn't make the big mistake. He did have that one interception. But I think that's why people are like, well, it's the system. It's the system. It's like, well, if he works within the system and he wins 3 Super Bowls, then who cares what the moniker is?
But that's the game, Ryan. That's the game. What are people thinking out there? Like, do you not watch football? I mean, the gunslingers. Now, listen, I give him all the credit in the world. I love Josh Allen, but he's more that. And has he won a Super Bowl? No. Has Lamar Jackson even gotten to a Super Bowl? No. So to me, that's why this, ding dong. It's like, that's the system right now, especially with the defenses, the speed, the size you have on defense. You're going to offenses and offensive coordinators and coaches, they're going to take advantage of that. And that's exactly what the Chiefs, in fact, the argument, and there was a great story online, I can't remember where it was now, that said, Patrick Mahomes won the game because in the second half, he became more of a game manager, right? I mean, he that's what he did. He wasn't trying to create and sling the ball downfield. He created by working within the system, taking what they were giving and just chipping away. And then what happens at the end of the game? They win the game. So to me, that's where it is. And Patrick Mahomes, is he the greatest of all time? No. Is he possibly going to get there? Maybe. But again, you what are you going to develop? I mean, he's not in Tom Brady category yet. Tom Brady has 7 rings. Okay. He's 4 ahead. But if you look at Patrick Mahomes having won 3 already by the age of 28 and how fast he's done it and his dominant playoff record, the stat that blew me away, Ryan, after the game was the fact that Patrick Mahomes, his record in the postseason going into the fourth quarter with a deficit being down 7 points or more, he was 9-2. And the only other player since 1950 with a record close to him was Brady at 10-11. So, and obviously Brady had a longer career so far. So Patrick Mahomes, the book is still open. It's not closed yet, but we'll see. And we'll see if he can, it's all about sustaining it. That's what made Brady so amazing is he went for so long, including the last year he won in Tampa Bay. So he could be the GOAT. Right now, he's the best in football. There's no question to me, with all due respect to Lamar Jackson as an amazing athlete and a good quarterback too. it's the whole package. It's creating, it's the mental side of things here, Ryan, too. He has a mental advantage because people in the back of their mind, well, Mahomes got the ball last in the game. Guess what's going to happen? It's there. It's like
Yeah.
Elway. Remember when Elway used to do that?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, I don't think not even Niner fans probably, once they got the ball back in overtime, the Chiefs, everyone knew, like, well, okay, they're for sure going to get a field goal. Like, they know they're getting a field goal. So are we going to the third possession, or are
Yeah.
they going to win it right here? I think everyone just knew that. Let me ask you this, and maybe this is, I don't want to get too far away from the Super Bowl. I know that's our
Mhm.
topic, and we kind of mentioned this a few weeks ago, I think, but like, when you see them winning again, especially with the team they had, this being like the worst offensive output they've had, like, who, and we don't even need to talk about the NFC when they get to the Super Bowl. Let's just talk about the AFC. Like, who can you see potentially dethroning this dynasty,
Yeah.
whether it's
No,
quarterback or team?
yeah, it's a good question. In fact, Stephen A. Smith had Lewis Reddick on. I did a quick write up on this up on sportsnot.com this morning if you want to check it out if you're watching.
Yeah, I teed you up on purpose. That's what it was.
I know, it's so good. You're such a pro. And to me, and I agree with him because I had said this, I was saying this because I'm in Cincinnati. I'm not a Bengals fan, but I'm in Cincinnati. I'm surrounded by my buddies who are. And I've been saying it since the playoffs began. I said, the only guy who's ever gotten mentally in the same place and seems to have a leg up on the Chiefs is Joe Burrow, right? Joe Burrow and the Bengals, right? They beat them 2 years ago to go to the
Arrowhead.
Super Bowl. Then last year they went to Arrowhead and they lost by 3. Should have won the game technically, but they just couldn't execute. But Joe Burrow and the Chiefs, like he's got a little bit of an edge there for whatever reason, and it happens in baseball. I'm a big baseball guy too. Tony Gwynn, you ever see the interviews with Greg Maddux? And Greg Maddux talks about F Tony Gwynn because I could never get him out. I could never, and like here's a guy who was getting everybody out, right?
Yep.
And he couldn't get, and it's just some guys and some matchups. It's a weird cosmic thing. It's mental too. But his point, the point Lewis Reddick made about Burrow and being the guy who could and match Mahomes is that they're very similar. Not necessarily their play style, although you could argue some of that's the same, is a mentality. Like Joe
Yeah.
Burrow's got that mentality where it doesn't matter. I'm gonna lift my team with me. And that's
Yep.
exactly what Mahomes does.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the answer. I think I'm really intrigued to see what happens in LA here with Jim Harbaugh now with Justin Herbert. Herbert obviously has the talent. I've talked a lot where he hasn't quite made that Burrow Mahomes step to elevate. Now he's obviously had moments where he's carried the team in games, but when it matters most and whatnot, we haven't seen that transition yet. So we'll
Yeah.
see if Harbaugh can get him over that hump. But we've seen, Josh Allen have the opportunity. We've seen Lamar Jackson have the opportunity. We've seen Trevor Lawrence, who's still young, but he's entering his 4th season, so he's had the opportunity. So I think it's kind of resting in the hands of Burrow and then what Harbaugh can do with Herbert. Otherwise, we may see Mahomes in the Super Bowl every year for the next decade.
Well, and then you look at the situation with salary cap. So the Chiefs, like I said, they're going to free up probably around 40 million total, 35 from Mahomes. It's been rumored that he's going to restructure. If you go to overthecap.com, you can check that out and play with the buttons and it'll tell you. So they're going to free up some money. They have to. They got to go get in some offense, right? They also have free agents. They have, and we're going to talk about at the last segment of the show here, which is Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed. Those are all guys who are going to be free agents. So who do you keep? Who do you tag? What do you do? So they got some big decisions to come up. The Bengals, and this is another reason why I think they are the only team that's going to level up with the Chiefs next year, as long as Burrow's healthy, of course, which is a problem for him. They have 65 million in cap space. It's insane. They're going to be able to go out and not only get who they want, but they're going to play in some of these big free agent signings too. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens there. But it was a fun game. I really enjoyed it. One of the best we've seen. It kind of was stale and for the first half. Then you get into the second half, and of course the fourth quarter was amazing. So I was glad to see that. And I'm not even talking about the halftime show because I don't care. But fun times. And the only sad part about it is that the season is over as far as games on the field go. But coming up here at the end of the month, Ryan, is the NFL Combine. Now, some fans out there might not be interested in the Combine. It's basically a tryout. It's a bunch of measurements. It's a bunch of skills. You get the vertical jump. You get the 4-cone. Shout out to my buddy Kelly, who makes fun of that all the time. You get the 40-yard dash. You get all that stuff to just kind of for the NFL teams to go there and scout these players and get them in one location. You and I are going to be there as well. And what's interesting about the combine this year, and every year, is there's always guys that hurt themselves, meaning they don't come in and perform as well as people think they're going to perform based on their college numbers and all that. And then there's those guys who seemingly impress the hell out of somebody, even though they kind of were under the radar. 314 players invited to the combine. And some of the big ones, of course, we know the quarterbacks like Caleb Williams from USC, Drake May from North Carolina, of course, Jane Daniels from LSU, the quarterbacks are all going to be there. But I think it's really fascinating because if you're a draft person and you really want to know about the draft, I'm not saying there to sit there and watch all of it, Ryan. But I think for fans, check in. You could check your local newspaper, whoever covers your team, and say, hey, who are they interested in? Where do they need? So if you need a quarterback, if you need a running back, if you need a defensive back, like watch some of those. You get more familiar with those guys, and you're able to kind of at least know going into the draft. If your team takes some dude out of Idaho State, like who he is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love the combine. It's, it's known as what, the underwear Olympics is what everyone calls it now.
Exactly.
But it's become quite the event. Like it was such a, maybe even just 10 years ago, Scott, you would know, you've been in the media longer than I have, but it was a very exclusive like event that no media could go to. It was just like scouts and GMs. And you kind of hear some things and some rumors would come out, and then they started televising it. And now, it's kind of a media mecca. It's almost like the biggest event outside of the draft and the Super Bowl when it comes to NFL. And it's such a fun place to be in Indy, just because it's all the big wigs in the NFL. You get all the execs out there, all the scouts, all the GMs, all the agents, all the players. And so it's basically like a high school hallway in the city of just all the rumors, people passing notes. You're sitting at lunch with next to, offensive coordinators. You're at the bar, the Slippery Noodle, the oldest bar in Indianapolis. At night, we were there a bunch last year at night, just brushing shoulders with NFL. So it's a great time. But yeah, I mean, it's a good opportunity, I think, to, do some self scouting as a fan to see kind of what, these players look like. I personally don't take a lot of stock in, the 40 and all these different stuff. Most of the benefits of the combine come in like privacy in the interview rooms, and like teams really interview like someone like Caleb Williams. Like no one's going to care what his 40 time or his 3-cone or any of that stuff. They're going to care what his mentals look like in the, in the interview process and when they put him on the whiteboard and whatnot. So that's value. I always find it funny as someone that covers the Rams never show up. They never go.
They never go at all?
They never go. They don't send anyone.
Interesting.
So last year, it's hilarious, Scott. So at Lucas Oil Stadium, which in my opinion is one of the best stadiums in all of football, because it embolizes the city of Indy. Like it's so cool. The brick, like it looks like a factory stack house right in downtown Indy, and it just fits so well. I love it. It's a cool stadium. If you haven't been, go check out a game in Indy. It's an awesome stadium. But they put each team in one of the suites. So all the suites, each team gets a suite during the combine, the field drills, and you can see underneath the suite, it has a team name. So when you're there in media, we get like a certain section to sit in to watch all the drills. And so you can say, oh, cool, there's the Niners. And you can kind of look far like, oh yeah, that's Kyle Shanahan up there, and look, and it's all the teams, and the Rams just dark with no one there. It's just an empty, dark suite for the Rams there. So they don't see the value. They do all their self scouting and they're in-house, and they do the interviews via Zoom. And obviously they've been pretty good drafting. So I think it's worked out okay.
Yeah, Kyron Williams. I mean, you name it. But that's interesting. And it's always, it's not, even though fans can go and watch, it's not like a fan event. It's not like so exciting, right? Because even if you have to be a real draftnik or a real hardcore football fan to want to go and watch that stuff, right? For us, it's a little different. We get to know guys so that when it comes up in a drafting situation, we have a better sense for it. But yeah, it's a blast. I've been to Lucas Oil a couple times, including the Super Bowl, when the Giants beat the Patriots. So it's a great town. It's a great place. And I'm looking forward to it. And we're going to bring you all that stuff. So we'll do one of these shows live from there. You guys will have some of your LA football stuff. We'll have our Raiders show from there, all kinds of stuff going on. So it's going to be fun. But that's the next thing coming up. That's the next piece of football. Now, there is the transition tag stuff coming up. That's next week, Ryan. Or later this week. Yeah, next week, early next week. So we're going to see some of these teams tag some of these players. Not always the most joyous occasion for either one, by the way. And players don't get happy about that because they're looking for new deals. And we'll get some more answers. That'll really, I think, start to bubble up some news as we head into the combine around what's going on with some of these teams and some of these players. if we switch over now, we start talking about the free agency, Ryan, and going in again. The league year starts March 13th, so just a few weeks away. I think it's 29 days away or 28 days away by my last count. But we look at the list of free agents coming up. First on that list is Chris Jones. Today in Kansas City, by the way, we hope everybody is okay in Kansas City. There was supposedly a shooting there at the parade today. Hopefully everybody's okay. I have not gotten the latest news since we went on the air. But Chris Jones got on stage and said he wasn't going anywhere. So now he may not want to go anywhere. That doesn't mean the Chiefs are going to give him the money he wants. So you're at a celebration. You're not going to go up and say, hey, it was great. I'm going to see you later. I probably won't be back. But what the Chiefs do, there's two big free agents in my top five that the Chiefs have that could be available, one or both of them, or none of them, Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed. And starting with Jones, he's such a great year, had a great Super Bowl. Of course, we know last year he held out, lost a bunch of money, came in, agreed to the 1-year deal. So now, what do you think happens with Chris Jones? I don't see how the Chiefs bring back him and Sneed. And if I'm making a choice, I got to be honest with you. I would tag Sneed, and then if I can get Jones at the right price, I do it. But I don't know. The Chiefs are going to have to make some really tough choices.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough, and I know he said that, but OBJ said it after the Rams parade. He was gone. Switching sports, Bruce Brown said it at the Nuggets parade. He signed with the Pacers 2 weeks later. So it's all fun when the booze is flowing on the parade, but once it comes down to sign some contracts and talk money, it shifts a little bit. Yeah, I don't see a world now. Brett Veach and the Chiefs organization has been really financially smart and savvy how they've done things. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but it seems very unlikely both are back. And I agree with you, though, Scott. As good as Chris Jones is and as impactful as he was in that Super Bowl, you think about the play, getting in Brock Purdy's face on that overthrow in overtime that forced the field goal. I would personally probably make Sneed the priority just because how much more challenging, and this isn't to downplay interior defensive line play or how good Chris Jones is, but I think it's way harder to find a premier elite level, secondary player, back end guy.
Correct.
I mean, and especially consistently when you get a guy that can be good year in and year out for a 5-year period of time. I think they found that in Sneed, and Chris Jones is, a little bit older, not old, but a little bit. And I just think there's more optionality out there in just the draft or even cheaper free agents where they're not going to make up totally for Chris Jones's production, but they can at least find someone that they could get better production from a lesser player at that position than they would at secondary, which would probably see a huge drop off. So yeah, I don't see both. And I think I totally agree with you. I think Sneed needs to be a priority.
Yeah. And to me, your point about the interior defensive line, very important. Don't, like you said, but I can get a really good player this year late in the first round on the interior of the defense in the draft. Yeah. So is they're going to come in on a rookie contract? Yeah. They're not as proven clearly as Chris Jones is, but it's going to cost me a heck of a lot less money. So I agree with that. And there was a report out today that Sneed, if Sneed hits the market, the Falcons, the Cowboys, and the Raiders would be all in on him. So that was interesting news there. I would imagine there'd be more than that, by the way, because he is one of the best. He had a great season there as well. You look at the other free agents of mention. We'll keep on the offense here for a second, or go back to the offense. T. Higgins, Cincinnati Bengals. We're hearing word now today that they're going to tag him. And that makes sense. I mean, he's only 25 years old, but the Bengals have to be careful with the situation there too. So I don't think they're going to give him a big contract. On the defense, Josh Allen from the Jacksonville Jaguars, the outside linebacker, and linebacking in the NFL, hard to find good linebackers. I mean, there's plenty of them, but a lot of teams are in need of linebacker help. So I think Josh Allen's going to do well for himself. He's I think tied for second in the NFL with 17 and a half sacks. In 23, excuse me. And so I don't know though, because the Jacksonville Jaguars has said that, well, he'll be a Jaguar next season. But again, you get in with agents and lawyers and contracts, and you never know what's going to happen. Do you think he hits the market?
I'm trying to think of who else they have to prioritize. I mean, they would be smart, I think, to tag him. When you look at that outside backers / edge position, it's basically him and Brian Burns are the two priority guys. So, I mean, if they let him hit it, I think they'll get outbid. I mean, he'll be a very hot commodity. So
exactly,
they're going to have to tag him if they want to keep him, I think, or just if they're able to extend him right away and he wants to stay, then great. But yeah, he'll probably be honestly one of the top 5. Whoever gets let go of the Chiefs of those 2, and then him, Burns, and a few others will be probably the top 5 commodities in this cycle.
Yeah. Burns is on my list too. Of course, he's defensive end, plays that hybrid with the linebacker position too with the Panthers. And of course, one of the big names, also, you talk about interior defensive lineman, Justin Matabuke from Baltimore Ravens is also due to hit the market as well. So we'll see. He should get, I think he should get, I think the Ravens will let him go, and I think he's going to get a good deal. Kirk Cousins, the quarterback. I mean, we talk about one of the top free agents out there. So much conflicting. We hear the Vikings might trade up to go get a quarterback in the first round. We heard them might trade up. Our friends at Minnesota Sports Fans, part of the Sports Not family, said they might trade up to number 3 with the Patriots to try to get a quarterback, to try to get Jaden Daniels or try to get Drake Mayer, whoever it is. But then there's Kirk Cousins, who sounds like he wants to be back in Minnesota, but it seems like Minnesota's just not sure if they're like, do we give it one more push with him for a couple years, or is it time to turn the page and go for a rookie quarterback? I think they could actually do both, but that would require them to trade up as well. So it's an interesting situation to watch Kirk Cousins and where he ends up.
Yeah, if I was Minnesota, I would re-sign him. I know it's costly, obviously, and then I would take a quarterback and either with their first round pick where they sit, see who falls. Obviously, it won't be one of the top guys, but let him develop, or even in the mid rounds, and try to see if you can get lucky, strike some gold with one of those mid round guys. Get a Russell Wilson, who was a 3rd round pick, a Dak Prescott, who was a 4th round pick. Obviously, Purdy was a 7th round pick. So I'd probably go that, just because you're going to have a top end quarterback in Cousins. I know he gets a lot of hate around the league, but he's for sure a top 15. You could argue top 10. And if he didn't get injured last year, Minnesota would have been in the playoffs. So that's probably what they should. And you have the report Justin Jefferson's not going to sign anything until he knows what's going on at quarterback. And I know he has a good relationship with Kirk. So that might be enough. He's playing the Max Crosby card. Like,
he is.
Hey, do this or else I'm out. So
yes. And one of my favorite players I'll mention here too. And another guy I think will get tagged. I think if the Chicago Bears let this kid go, they're nuts, which is Jalen Johnson. He's one of my favorite cornerbacks too. Of course, he got a Pro Bowl. I know it doesn't mean as much as it used to, but still got a Pro Bowl, recognizing him for his play. And I just don't think he gets the attention he deserves on the national stage because of the Bears. And you have some other defensive backs that we mentioned: Snead, Antoine Winfield Jr. from Tampa Bay. The safety is going to be out there. Danielle Hunter from Minnesota, of course, another defensive end. Defensive end's a premium position. You got a lot of wide receivers too. Michael Pittman Jr., Mike Evans, and of course we talked about T. Higgins if he ends up hitting the market. So Ryan, you look at that stuff and pretty good. It depends on the position, of course, but on the defense specifically, a lot of big names could be out there. So that early signing period come 4 weeks from now, is going to be huge. A lot of teams out there with big needs. These guys, especially on the defense, it's going to be a competitive market.
I mean, absolutely. And here's a position I want to ask you about, Scott, because linebacker, interior, like an inside middle linebacker, has kind of been degraded a bit in today's NFL, at least in terms of what they get in the salary cap, what they are, seen as in terms of viability. But we've seen, obviously, the teams that go far in the playoffs have had really good linebackers. You look at the Niners. I mean, they're anchored by Fred Warner, and obviously losing Dre Greenlaw was a huge loss for them in the Super Bowl. Chiefs, Willie Gay Jr., who's going to be a free agent. Great season. You look at the Ravens. Guess what? Patrick Queen. Going to be a free agent.
Yes,
you look at some of these other guys. Devin White out of Tampa, who great player. Whatever happened in Tampa, all of a sudden was a healthy scratch, so he'll for sure be gone, but he'll be a hot commodity. Jordan Brooks from Seattle, Isaiah Simmons, former 5th overall pick, So what's your thoughts on the Anthony Barr? I mean, the list is kind of crazy how many good backers there are. What's your thoughts on the backer position? And do you see is it coming back as a premium? Or do you think a lot of these guys end up kind of not going unsigned just because teams don't see it worth paying more than $7 million for this position?
Yeah, I think it's not. I think the linebacker position, because of that hybrid position, especially with the safeties, right? The safety linebacker and then the defensive end linebacker, that's outside, I know. But the way the defensive schemes have been, I think it's de-emphasized it. There's not going to be a Lawrence Taylor, right? There's not going to be a guy like that anymore, or a Junior Seau even, right? Those type of players, to me right now, it's sort of like the running backs, not quite as low as the running backs as far as the market goes. I think you're looking for a more athletic guy who can drop back in coverage, right? not just play the middle right there and rush, but also be able to drop in coverage with a speedy wide receiver or these huge, really talented tight ends we're seeing around the league now. Okay. I mean, look at the tight ends, right? So you look at that and you that type of player, that hybrid thing still seems to be the rage. And so I think guys like Patrick Queen, though, are important. You know, you look at some teams who are just lacking that, right? And to me, that will be interesting to see how that market comes. We'll have to get somebody on the show to talk about that, about the market for linebackers, because it's fascinating to me. Like, is it going to hit bottom? Has it already hit bottom and now it's coming back up? Or what's sort of the thinking there? Maybe we can ask around too when we're at the combine and just talk to agents, talk to coaches, and see sort of where it's going. It's a great question.
Yeah, it's just interesting because it's been such a, I think back to the old days of football. That was like the cool position, right? The middle
yeah.
linebackers. You mentioned Lawrence Taylor, but you think of all these great, Junior Seau and John Mobley and Bill Romanowski and all these, badass linebackers. And now it's like you still have that. You still have these great linebackers that are playing, but it's just, when it comes to free agency, they're definitely not a priority. But this year, to my knowledge, is one of the most stacked free agent classes that I can remember. And we know they won't be tagged. I mean, those are not the position that teams are tagging. So they'll hit the market and we'll see guys in a lot of new places.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's going to be fascinating. We're going to be here for it. By the way, Leo Chenal from the Chiefs, look what he did in the Super Bowl. Talk about linebackers. Guy had the best stats of any player in the Super Bowl, by the way. Nobody even knows who he is, right? But he did an amazing job. So I love that, though. And I miss that. It's my age, though. I grew up watching linebackers like that. So I would love to see it come back, even though it's a little bit different. But,
hey,
but a very good question.
As a lifelong Bronco fan, Randy Gradishar finally in the Hall of Fame.
Yes, finally got in.
As a
well-deserved
linebacker. Yes.
That's another thing. We'll have to do a whole nother show on that, because the freaking Hall of Fame, they wait on people. Half of them end up passing away before they put him in. Luckily, with McMichael, they put him in this year too. And, he's got that degenerative disease. He's just bedridden and can't go even. But it was so, I don't know if you saw that video of him. He was so excited and took so long to get him in. But some of these guys, I don't understand. It's not like the Pro Football Hall of Fame, with all due respect to everybody in it. It's not like it's as selective as the Baseball Hall of Fame. So why would you wait on these guys and when they clearly have the credentials to get in, and you just named them? I mean, it's like, come on, let's do it. But anyway, we'll get into that rant another time on the show.
Well, I'll just say and then move on. But it's like how did Antonio Gates not get in?
It's insane. He's insane.
Literally probably the third best tight end ever.
You just look at the numbers aren't even close. Who got in recently? I'm forgetting now. Oh, it's Gonzalez, and Gonzalez was great. But Gates' numbers are even better in most cases. Or it was Gonzalez. I think it was Gonzalez. So you look at that, it makes no sense whatsoever. Makes no sense. He better get in next year. That's all I got to say.
He better, but it's even a tougher class next year. So that's what's crazy. This was his year to get in right away, but he'll get in eventually.
Yeah, he will. But it's like, why? Why do that? It makes zero sense. But that's a whole different story. We'll have to talk about it another time. All right, Ryan. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Not Zone. My friend, I know it's football slows down just a little bit here. We get a little respite before the combine,
not much.
but just not much, just a little bit. But we'll be right back on it, and we'll be here all the time. We'll be here every week through the summer, all that stuff. We might have a couple of weeks off here and there, but other than that, we're going to be there, and we're going to be talking about what is going on in the NFL. We'll have some news next week, obviously, as we get closer to the tag, the franchise transition tag selections, and then of course we'll start to hear things leak out about players. We've already saw Mitch Trubisky get released in Pittsburgh. We'll start to see some of that stuff, the pre-June 1st things. Some teams don't even want to wait. They just want to okay, you're done. You're good. See you later. So we'll be on top of all of that. Make sure you check out Ryan on x.com at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB. And if you're a fan of Los Angeles football, whether it be college or football or professional football, excuse me, I'm having trouble talking today, man. See the Super Bowl hangover.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're interested, go check it out. As well. It's good stuff there, and a great podcast over there, great videos, you name it. You can find it at the LA Football Network. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel here on Sports Not. Make sure you hit the notifications bell so you know whenever we have a new video. Also, do us a favor, give us that thumbs up, and check out the latest coverage of your favorite sport, including the NFL, up on sportsnot.com. Ryan, my friend, I will talk to you next week. Thanks for being here again.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Talk to you next week.
All right. For everybody here at Sports Knot, you guys have a great week, and we will talk to you next week.